There's something magical about a well-aged wine, the way time transforms it, deepening its flavors, refining its character, making it richer, smoother, more legendary. Here in this cellar, surrounded by barrels filled with potential greatness, I can't help but draw a parallel to a different kind of aging process. One that doesn't involve grapes, oak barrels, or fermentation, but instead sheer skill, dedication, and longevity in one of the most competitive esports of all time. Counter-Strike. Some wines, despite the years, maintain their excellence. Some even improve, becoming more valuable, more complex, more respected. Others, however, sour. They lose their edge, their depth, their magic, just like players. Today, we're diving into a question that's been on my mind. In the history of CS, who has truly aged like a fine wine, and who has aged like, well, a glass of milk left in the sun? Before we get into it, I just want to raise a metaphorical glass to all of you. In just one video, we hit 500 subscribers. That's insane. Whether it's your likes, your comments, or just your time watching, it all means the world to me. Seriously, thank you. Cheers to all of you. Lately, I've had tons of ideas bouncing around in my head, but one in particular has been stronger than all the rest. As I mentioned in my last video, I've been watching a lot of Furia's games, despite their habit of throwing crucial rounds, and one player has kept me glued to the screen. Fallon, the Professor. 33 years old and still competing at the highest level. Watching him made me think. In traditional sports, we have legends like Cristiano Ronaldo in football and LeBron James in basketball, athletes who seem to defy time itself. But what about CS? Who is our version of that? Who has aged like an exquisite vintage Bordeaux, growing stronger with every passing year? We all know that, scientifically, performance in esports tends to decline over time. Reaction times slow down, reflexes dull, mental stamina takes a hit. But has anyone in CS defied this trend and only gotten better with age? Maybe you already have a name in mind. Go ahead and drop your guess in the comments. Let's see if your game knowledge is as sharp as my data analysis. Now, let's get to work. This video is actually a continuation of my last one, where I analyzed inconsistency in CS players. If you haven't seen it yet, click the card above to check it out. But to answer today's question, I needed more data. So, I did what any self-respecting data nerd would do. I scraped the internet for player stats, compiled massive spreadsheets, and ran the numbers. I gathered performance data over the years for the best CS players we know, analyzing their online and offline matches, as well as their records in major tournaments. And of course, my tool of choice for all this, Node.js. Yeah, I know, most people would use Python for this. Judge me if you want. I just prefer Node. With it, I processed and refined the data to answer the golden question: which players aged like fine wine, and which players aged like a glass of milk left in the sun? Now, let's get into the methodology and mathematics. First, I captured the data. On some websites, we have records of several years of players and their performance each year. That's where I started. I captured all this data with the help of a library called Puppeteer. With Puppeteer, I captured this data and recorded each progress per year of each CS player. The rules for choosing the players were the following. I only used players who were, for at least 1 year, in the top 20 players on the HLTV website. With this rule, I was able to filter only players who had already had a prime at a very high level, destroying Tier S competitions. The second rule is the following. I only considered years of the career in which the player played at least 100 games to reduce the number of outliers in years in which the player played very few games and may have done extremely poorly or extremely well. Now, we will start creating the metrics. I thought to myself, how can I calculate how much a player has evolved over time? How can I find a score that will define how well a player has aged? First, for our final spreadsheet, I saved some key data to calculate these scores. The data I saved in our table is the following. Career duration. This data is simple. Basically, it is the total time of the player's career. This data will influence the score because the longer the player's career, the more room for improvement, and consequently, the more points the player will score in the final score. But I will not be excluding players with shorter careers. Still, some players are following patterns similar to these with successful careers, and it would be cool to predict which players are going to get older and still be competing in the highest level. Prime year. The prime year will be the best year of the player's career. This will be used as a baseline because the later the player reached his prime, the better he aged, right? As an example, we have Forrest. Forrest had his prime in 2013, hitting top 2 in the HLTV ranking with 1.28 rating. His career went on until 2021 to 2022, so that means that Forrest hit his prime really early on his career. On the other hand, we have Rops. He hit his prime in 2023, kinda late on his career, considering he started playing professionally around 2017, 6 years before. Improvement slope. Imagine a player's career as a slide. If this metric is going up, the player is getting better each year. If it is flat, he is staying about the same, and if it is going down, he is getting worse over time. This metric will indicate the direction in which the player's career is going rating-wise. This is very important, perhaps the most important metric to measure a player's performance. To calculate the slope, I use this formula. It's kinda complex, so I will not enter in details. What you need to know is that the slope value represents the average change in rating that a professional player had year by year. To make it easier to understand, here are some examples. Malbs have a positive 0.023 of slope, meaning on average, his rating gains this value yearly. Olaf, in the other, has a slope of negative 0.03 yearly, meaning that, in average, he lost this amount of rating yearly. Decline rate. The decline rate is the percentual difference between his first professional rating versus his last. This, alongside with the slope, shows whether or not the player's rating decreased throughout his career. It will also be used in the calculation of the final score. To be easier to visualize, these are the decline rates of ZywOo, Guardian and Fallen. Titles and MVPs. Nothing is more important than, in addition to considering the movement of the player's rating, also considering his achievements, both in terms of overall titles and MVPs in different competitions and matches. For this metric, we will use it as a tiebreaker criterion, giving more value to trophies and MVPs won in the later stages of their career. The Wine Index. And now, the final score, the Wine Index. This score will combine all the previous metrics with their respective weights to return a number from 0 to 100. The weights of each value is the following: 40% for the career duration, 35% for the prime year, 20% for the improvement slope, and 5% for the decline rate. If players end up with tied scores, the tiebreaker is the titles and MVPs of the player. The calculation is made multiplying the scores by a base of 10, like 100 or 1000, and then multiplying it by its weight. In the end, we end up with a score that tells us how well a player aged in the professional CS scene. Simple, right? Now that you understand all the values involved in our calculation, before showing you the results, I just want to clarify one thing. How well a player ages within the competitive CS scene is very difficult to predict. There are many variables, external to rating, titles, MVPs, that describe a player's performance, which are impossible to consider when calculating a score. Considering all the data that is available to me through websites, wikis, demos, videos, the following results are what I will show you next. Here we are, at the end of our journey, and again, I want to raise the metaphorical glass of wine to all of you who have reached the final part of the video. I know some of the mathematical sections might have been a bit boring, but I promise it will all be rewarded in the end. Before I show you the results, I have a message for the nerds who are interested in getting a more in-depth view of all the data I gathered and the code I developed. In the description, you can click on a link to my Ko-Fi. There, for just $5, you gain access all the spreadsheets, data, code, and scraping tools I've already used in my videos. If you rather, you can subscribe to the CS2 Nerds tier. and access all the content from this and future videos while also helping me keep my channel and passion alive. Without further ado, let's check the results together. In 5th place, we have Bolts. Though never the flashy star player with highlight reel performances, his consistency and gradual rating improvement, culminating in his late prime in 2020, secured him the 5th position with 63 points in the Wine Index. In 4th place stands Staven. With a career 1 year shorter than Bolts, but featuring a later prime, Staven demonstrated a remarkably similar improvement trajectory. However, his lower decline rate gives him the edge, earning him a final score of 65 on the Wine Index. In 3rd place, we find Rops. Having competed in the professional scene for 8 years, he maintained exceptional performance throughout his career. His late 2023 prime combined with an impressive positive 0.02 improvement slope. The best among the top 5, places him firmly in 3rd position with 70 points in the Wine Index. The 2nd place belongs to the CS Global Offensive GOAT, Simple. With a decade-long career and a late 2021 prime, Simple maintained an excellent improvement slope, second only to Rops. Many might question his runner-up position since he hasn't actually competed in CS2. However, those who witnessed his evolution throughout CS understand his placement. Simple finishes with 70 points in the Wine Index, breaking the tie with Rops thanks to his numerous MVPs and championship titles in CS. Now, our last guy. Like a rare vintage Bordeaux that develops complex layers over decades, our number 1 has matured with sublime patience. Where lesser talents peak early and fade, he has deepened in character, grown more nuanced in his play, and emerged with a bouquet of skills that only time could perfect. Just as the finest wines require years in the cellar before reaching their magnificent potential, so too has he ripened into something extraordinary that connoisseurs of the game can truly appreciate. That man is a liege. He achieved an extraordinary score of 76 points, 6 ahead of Simple and Rops. What's the reason? His remarkably long career spanning 10 years, paired with an extremely late prime that many agree is happening right now, at complexity, he delivers consistently outstanding performances in almost every match, as evidenced by his rating progression chart on his HLTV stats profile. Furthermore, he boasts the best decline rate in the entire ranking, having gained a positive 5% rating compared to his first season. To put this in perspective, the second best decline rate is just 0.9%, belonging to Twists. With that, we conclude our ranking of the top 5 players who aged like fine wine in CS2. For those curious, we've also identified the 3 players who scored worst in our ranking, players we might say didn't age particularly well in the competitive scene. Thank you very much for watching the video. It's really heartwarming to have all the support I'm getting, and it's really motivating me to produce more content. Thanks everyone. Till the next video, much love. Bye.